All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Tycho Talks. This is actually the 10th episode, which is crazy. We finally hit double digits.
Yes.
So it's quite impressive. Now, today we've got another guest. His name is ARCHIT. So we know each other. We used to work with each other for not long. It would have been six months or something, yeah. And that's where we met and stayed in touch. And I think recently, a couple of months ago, we bumped into each other and yeah, now we're here. So before we get into today's topic, which I'm excited for, walk us through maybe a bit of your background, what you do, something fun fact about yourself.
Okay, my name's Archie, as Nate said. It's actually ARCHIT, but I go by Archie because it's a lot easier in Australia to be, because I hate spelling my name out when I go to places. So I'm 23 years old. I'm a chemical engineer by profession. I came to Australia in 2018 as a student studying my bachelor's degree. At that point, it was just, working as much as I can because my father and I had this sort of agreement where he's like, oh, you go there and you figure yourself out for the first year and a half. And after that, I want you to be able to start looking out for yourself with your expenses and, your university costs, which as an international student can be stupid amounts, like you've probably heard. And so it was that. So it was the first year of being a 17-year-old and figuring out, all right, in about a year's time, I need to set up my stuff in a way that I'm able to support myself and be able to look out for these big expenses. So it was just there, and luckily I got a job in a professional setting when I was 20, which is where I found Nate at CSI. And yeah, it's been good since then. I've been working in the professional space ever since, and now that things are better and I feel like I'm learning more about life, I've also realized that this whole 9-to-5 thing is great. It's great on paper. It's great when people talk about it. But now that I'm doing it every day, I'm like, okay, maybe there is more. There's more than just this, because if I'm able to do what I've done at the age of 17 and come to where I am already, I feel like there's a higher purpose for me, and I feel like my 9-to-5 is just not cutting it.
Yeah, well said. Yeah. That's really cool. And I guess it's going to tie into what we're talking about today. So we're going to touch on personal development. Now, it's such a loaded topic, so we're going to obviously break it down into a number of categories. So, I mean, for me, personal development in a generic sense, but then if we go down, we look at the layers, we got reading, the power of reading and how that actually impacts people's lives. The power of association, which is a big one. And I don't think people really understand how powerful your association is until you leave your comfort zone and go into a better association. You realize the difference. And then we might just touch on, our personal experiences, maybe with relationship struggles, relationship breakdowns, because I don't know about you, but for me personally, every time I had a relationship breakdown, it actually gave me an opportunity to refine myself and be better. And it was actually that driving factor to help me elevate in life. Now, I'm not saying that it has to be for everybody. It's just for me personally, that's how it was. So we'll touch on that as well. We were kind of talking off camera about personal development, and I mentioned to you that I'm quite shocked at how many people out there are actually not self-aware in the slightest and don't do any intentional work on themselves to better themselves. And, just from the interactions that I have with some people, it's quite evident who out there literally puts zero effort into refining their social skills, the way they communicate, the way they articulate themselves. And I was taken aback by it because, you sometimes feel like you're in this bubble where everybody's like you.
It's so easy to fall into that trap because you're like, if I'm doing it, surely everyone else is. Right?
Well, where everyone, because I work on myself on a daily basis, and I mean, to the T, I'm always trying to refine myself. If I'm outside interacting with a stranger and it didn't go well, I actually reflect on that.
No, literally, I relate to that so much. Every second of my day is going into, okay, how could I have done that better? Or I've done that really well. I'm glad I've come such a long way. It's just back and forth on, reflecting and bettering, that sort of stuff.
Absolutely. And that's literally, even with these podcasts, like when I will watch back a podcast, I will always reflect. And actually, this ties into a quote that I heard Andrew Tate talking about this, and he said, practice doesn't make perfect. It's practice reflection. Refining makes perfect.
That's so right. Yeah, it's broken down so well.
Yeah, so you've got to practice. But if you're just practicing, I mean, we all speak English, but why are there some people out there who speak English better than others? Right? It's practice. I mean, we're all speaking English 24/7.
Yes.
But some people out there can articulate themselves a lot better than other people.
Based on what they're reading, the people they're interacting with.
Exactly.
Whether they're going back and going like, I could have said that better, maybe I'll work on it. Yeah.
Exactly.
100%.
And that ties into reflection.
Yeah.
And then refining. So I watch, I reflect, I refine. What did I do last podcast to not, and not, I don't want to do that again. So I remember my first ever podcast, I said 100%. If you go watch that, it was probably every 30 seconds I said 100%.
Yeah.
And I reflected on that. I said, that's not happening again.
Wow. No, it's these little things though, right? Because to you, because to a normal viewer, they're like, oh yeah, that's, something you say, it's part of your lingo. But I know how big that can be because, you sit down, you think about it, you're like, oh my God, why am I saying that again and again and again? And to refine that, I've watched all your videos, especially when I knew I was coming here. I was like, all right, I need to look at every podcast, see what they're doing and how they're doing it. And your production quality from day one to now has incrementally gotten so much better that I was like, yeah, no, 100%. These guys are going up and above, and I want to be part of that journey. Which is why, I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah.
But I get what you mean. Not just you making that little correction, but just the way the conversations have been flowing, the way the guests have been, prioritized, and they've been given this opportunity to speak and they've been heard. I feel like you've just been getting better and better. So yeah.
And sorry, go.
No, that's what I was saying. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And I think that's all the 1%, but it's me being intentional about fixing those little things. And you're right. I think one of the podcasts at the beginning, I would talk over someone, they would talk over me. And so now you're right. I'm being very intentional about, I'm giving you your time to speak. Then when you're done, I can then give my two-piece, right? And so that's really important. That's what actually makes the content better and makes our, the journey better. But I guess back to what we're saying, I mean, have you found similar where you're interacting with people and they're just not on that journey, and it's almost like this is a foreign person that you're interacting with?
Yeah, I'll call it a disconnect.
That's a good word.
You might have heard this quote, but the journey to bettering yourself, and I'm not saying it word for word, but the journey to self-development is it's a lonely road. Because when you're on your way to become better, you'll find your old interactions and people that you've associated in the past with always bringing you down. Now, they might not be doing this intentionally, but say I've started here and somebody else has started here with me, right? And we're both going out, doing the same sort of things, making the same sort of mistakes. This person and I are interacting on the daily, and we're both very accepting of each other. Until one day I start reading random books, right? And I'm like, oh, I can try this, I could try that. And I may not have found, my purpose yet, but I'm like, okay, I could do this. Or maybe I need to, start doing this fitness thing that I set aside 20 minutes a day and I can get fitter and do these kind of things. When I start doing these things a lot more consistently, you'll find that people around you who are not into that whole self-development stage yet will begin to make you feel like what you're doing is just a little, say, not normal. And it's very easy in that space to be like, hey, maybe it's just not for me, because the results aren't there yet. So it's very easy to go back, time back into what you said about finding people who are not on the same journey as you. When you get into this bubble, when you've put that aside, that, okay, no, this is what I want to do, this is how I want to be, you get so lost into becoming that way, fixing the way you speak, the words that you say, making sure people are getting the chance to speak. Every day you're self-correcting, self-bettering. Yeah. You begin to feel like everyone else around you is doing that, until you meet professionals in these big spaces, in the big corporate world. And you go wow, this guy seems like he's got his stuff together. And you go to them and you start talking about, how you did something at the gym, or you were reading about this and that. And over a conversation of 10 minutes, you realize that this guy's just not where you thought they'd be, because they're either, in a weird, funny sense, mocking you for reading about things of self-development in a way to say that, why would you need to develop yourself? Aren't you developed already? So this lack of self-awareness that, I know I'm a professional, I'm at this level, but I can always be better. I can always treat my subordinates better. I can always make people feel more heard. People just don't do that kind of stuff, and it's just very shocking. So
no, I agree. And there's actually an affirmation on my mirror there. You're never too good to get better. You're never too good to get better. And I've got to put that there and remind myself, because when you are on this journey of personal development, sometimes you can get a big ego. When you're reading all the books and all the, you're getting all the main takeaways and you're applying it, and you're getting better with your speech, and you're interacting with people who, because they're not on the same trajectory as you, you're kind of overgrowing them, you're in front of them, and so you start to get a big ego. And ego is the enemy, and there's a book called Ego is the Enemy. I have to reread it, but I have that on my mirror to remind myself, you're never too good to get better. You're never too good to improve. You're always going to be required to, as you mentioned, be self-aware, self-reflect, and better yourself.
Yep.
And just on that as well, I mean, last year, and it's not on my mirror anymore, but last year, one of my massive affirmations was, I am successful at everything I put my mind to.
Yep.
And I did have a very successful year. And even going into this year, I've had a very successful year in terms of business, in terms of even my career at work. I've done really well and excelled. And I think recently I've been dealing with this thing where I've been put into coaching a really high basketball team, like assisting.
Yeah.
And that's like completely out of my depth. And it's almost like God is bringing me back to earth and telling me, you're good, bro, you're good, but you're not good at everything. And it's okay. Like, humble yourself. This is your opportunity to go back to ground zero and find ways to build yourself.
Yeah.
Find ways to learn, because you're in this space now where you don't actually know it all. You're going to humiliate yourself, because there are going to be people there who know the game better than you, who know how to coach better than you.
Yeah.
And it's almost like he's thrown me in the deep end to give me a reality check where it's like, you're never too good to get better.
But then that's what will eventually lead to you getting better.
Absolutely.
And that's how you'll come out of it on top, which is where I hope we will touch on the relationships bit of things. But it's not important for you to fall into a relationship and, absolutely be devastated for you to get better. But it's more these sort of situations, like being out of your depth, being thrown in the deep end and going like, okay, how am I going to get out of this? That brings about the best in people. Right? Speaking of affirmations, I'm big on those myself. I'm really glad you brought that up. I feel like that's something everyone should be doing.
Yeah.
A really big one for me that I really want to touch on when I was coming here, which got me to believe in affirmations even more, was not too long ago. So about last year is when I sort of took a hard look at myself and was like, mate, you need to get a lot of your stuff together and start focusing more on things. And when I did that, I was like, okay, first and foremost, I need to start hitting the gym. And I've always been at the gym because a lot of my mates go to gym, but it's been something that I've been doing very passively. I'm like, oh, I've got time, what do I do? All right, I'll go to the gym because, it's a good thing or whatever, right? And in doing that, I realized that I'm not very consistent. I'm like, what's the problem? Like, where do I fall short? And I realized sometimes I do get very consistent because I'm a man of action. Like, I can go to the gym. It could be really cold outside. And, people are like, oh, getting all cozy. And I'm like, oh, if I need to go to the gym, I've committed to go there, I need to, and I will. But what's keeping me behind? And I realized that eating is a big one for me. I've always been what they call an ectomorph, like the skinny body type. And, that's true. And I understand that, you're physically restrained, you're a certain type of way. But it was less that, it was more what I believed. Because ever since I was a child, say when I would go to these parties and stuff with my mum, like these, get-togethers with these uncles and aunties would have these family gatherings. So I would get my plate and I'd grab a couple things, and my auntie or someone would come and be like, "Oh, Archie, take some more. Right? It's a big buffet. Like get more food." And my mum's like, "No, don't worry about him. He just doesn't eat. He's got a little stomach. She always make that. She said, "Oh, he's got a little stomach. He just doesn't eat. He's not a big eater." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm not." And she tried it, she wasn't always like that. She tried and tested and just failed at getting me to eat more and, that sort of stuff. So she's like, oh no, he wouldn't, even if you put more in his plate, it'll just be less. And then when I was at school, we went to this school where we had breakfast served to us, which when I was back in India. And all my friends would have these big plates full of food and they'd eat through them really quickly. And I have again, 2-3 things there and still not finish them on time. And there was this big thing around me saying that I eat slow, I eat very little, and everyone kept reinforcing that belief. So now I'm here taking a look at myself going why am I not getting the progress that I want at the gym? What's holding me back? And everyone says, oh, 40% gym, 60% food. And I'm like, okay, well, start eating, never able to eat. I'm like, why? Until I realized, okay, maybe if I were to, and that sounds really stupid because one might say this, you're a certain body type and you can't do it. But I just sat down and I wrote in my book of affirmations, you are a big eater. And I would say it out loud every morning at 6 a.m. I'd wake up and I'd look at it and I'd be like, you're a big eater. You eat a lot. And you get every meal that comes on your table, you smash and you make sure you finish everything. Right? And I was like, okay, that's what it is. And I'm going to keep doing that. Day in, day out. And I put a lot of emotion into that because I'm overcoming years of being told you don't eat enough, you can't eat, or yeah, he's probably not going to finish that. And I kid you not, mate, in the past 7 months, I've picked up 9 kilograms in weight. Now, you'd think I'm still pretty skinny.
You can tell you've put on,
But from where I've come, and to be able to do that, it's crazy. Yeah. And I kid you not, yeah, I've done the affirmation. Every time something comes on my table, I will be late to where I have to go. I will take a longer break at work, but I'll make sure I finish it. Doing it day in, day out, the amount of food I'm being able to consume in a day, hitting more than 3K calories, and my resting was like at 1400. Being able to do that day in, day out, it's literally a result of me telling myself that the biggest limitation I have is literally my own beliefs. If I believe I eat less, I eat less. If I believe I eat more, I eat more. A funny side to that story was I wasn't used to eating that much, so I got the shits. Sorry, like pardon my language, but I couldn't digest all that food.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm eating all that. Is it even like impacting me? And believe it or not, this is gonna sound really funny. 2 days after that, I got back to my notebook. I'm like, I'm a big eater, and the second line was, I'm a big digester. I kid you not, I'm like stomaching a lot more food now, all because I've decided that I will. So the power of, I know it's a long story, that one, but like it's very personal to me. It's very significant to me. The power of affirmations and saying, here's what you want, and like really putting your heart into that, and like putting emotions behind it. It can do anything for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, those stories are really important. It's very powerful. I've had countless stories similar to that in terms of reprogramming my belief system, because, you know, and especially with ethnics, when you grow up with ethnic parents, there's a lot of beliefs that are instilled in you that may not be healthy.
Yeah.
You know, and so trying to reverse engineer that and you know, actually instill the right beliefs, you know, and it's really important because I mean, you touched on something really important, limitations.
Yep.
And what you accomplish in life is as a result of, you know, what are you limiting yourself with? What are your limiting beliefs? Like if everyone could sit there for half an hour each day and write down a list of what their limiting beliefs are, what are you not good at? What do you believe you're not good at? What do you believe you're not going to succeed at? And write them down and then counter it with an affirmation opposite to that.
Yeah.
So if I don't, and I always talk about love because I struggled with love growing up. And so I never felt loved and never felt worthy of love. So if that's my limiting belief, then I used to sit down and I would say, well, what's an affirmation that counters that? It's a positive affirmation. I would start saying it. I am loved. I'm worthy of love.
Yeah.
And it takes a while because you, like I've mentioned before, you are trying to reverse years and years of programming, but it works.
Oh, 100%
It works.
Sorry, 100%. I've said it now. I've picked up on your lingo, but
No, yeah, 100%. As long as you say like once or twice, it's all good.
It's got a counter over here.
Yeah, counter. Only limit 10 times in an hour podcast. But no, it works, man. Like affirmations, I know people are like, oh, why would I do that? They genuinely work, but you've got to work them for them to work. You can't just say them a couple of times and not see results and then give up. It's almost like, and I'm sure we'll touch on this, gym. You don't hit the gym for a week, not see results and then quit.
Yeah.
You're never going to see the results.
No.
The results are where your work ethic lies. You're not going to see the results if you don't put the work in.
Yeah.
And so I actually had to stay consistent for a number of months without seeing results. And then all of a sudden you see a result and it,
like that.
it's crazy because you see a result and it reinforces it.
Yeah.
And then you start to go like this. There's a bit of an exponential growth in terms of how you feel about yourself and your self-belief. And then you start to dream about bigger things.
Yeah.
You know, when you get the foundations and you get the smaller limiting beliefs out of the way, you start to...
That's all right.
Sorry, this is why you don't sit here, man, because this thing is crazy.
Yeah.
All right, we're back, guys. We just had a bit of a... what do you call it?
Hiccup.
Yeah, it was good though. Like I actually enjoy the hiccups because it shows like I'm going to watch all these podcasts when we make it, when we're actually in you good, bro?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah.
Bro, yeah, and we're not going to have a freaking table like this, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Wait, the amount of times I've hit my knee on this table. But I genuinely, like since we're talking about growth, and then I'll get back to what I was saying, I look forward to the day where we're in a really nice warehouse where everything is perfect and there's no hiccups and it's all controlled because we will be in a controlled environment. Right now, we're not in a controlled environment. I've got my parents, I've got phones going off, the dogs, it's just crazy, right? So, but I look forward to when we get there, and then I will sit there when I'm financially free and I don't have anything to do with my time. I will sit there and I will go back to these first 10 episodes and watch all these hiccups. The phones that went off, the dogs that barked. The mum that interrupted, I'm looking forward to that. Like, it's really motivating me, man.
It should. Like, that's just, you sound like a man with vision, man, and that's what you got to be. And I see that glint in your eyes where you're like, I love this, and you got to enjoy the journey, right?
You have to, yeah.
Yeah, a big part of just this whole self-development bit. I'm really excited we're doing this, man. This is all I think about, talk about, and like, not a lot of people want to listen. I always want to have a platform where I can share my 2 cents, my little journey, right? But what you said about the gym, say, 5 months in, 6 months in, not a lot of results, and being consistent and not, things don't just happen overnight. They take time. So this book that I recommend to everyone who's into the reading journey is called The Slight Edge. I've forgotten who it's by, but it's a really good book. I pray you write it down. A really cool thing that book said, which really eased things for me, was, so I've been going gym 5-6 months now consistently, right? There's definitely improvements that I see personally. A lot of people come to me and are like, mate, you're looking a bit bigger. Great. But a lot of people that you go to, say, my new workplace, if I go and go like, oh, I go to gym, you say that and people are instantly like, oh, where are your muscles at? Like, why aren't you like jacked? Like, why are you not so big, right? And I'm like, back in the day, it would really throw me off, and I'd be like, "Oh my god, yeah, why do I not like bench 200? Like, why do I not?" And then that's when I realized these people, and I don't mean it in a negative way. I don't mean like these people like they're bad people or anything, but just people in general. A lot of us have been conditioned because, say, you watch a movie, right, with this guy, he wants to be a boxer, so he sees a dream. He sees a dream about being a boxer. He watches a movie, and he's like, "I want to be a boxer." And he starts training, and they have that little scene where he's just running on a treadmill, climbing a mountain, doing his whole exercise. That whole like journey of his is 5 to 10 minutes on screen, if that, until when he becomes like this A-level boxer and he's just beating everyone. And to people, that's what life is. Like, I'm going to decide to go to gym, and like 2 months later, I'm going to be ripped. 2 months is even like too much. People expect to see results within days, man. Like, I know people. I'm now dragging everyone to the gym, going like, you need to do this. And I see people with like a couple of sets later, they're like, oh shit, like that's coming. And you see that's their thinking. So if someone says, I'm doing the gym, you're supposed to be ripped. But here's what and this is something I extracted from the book because I really want to say it. So our journey to self-development and betterment is like a sine curve, right? Where there's 3 levels. So level 1, you'd call it failure. Second level would be survival. And the third is success. Right, so the sine curve just fluctuates between that, which is what keeps people limited and doesn't let them break their shackles per se and like move out and be that successful person. It's basically when you're in that level of failure, say you're an alcoholic, I'm going to use that, and you're like, shit, I'm really down in the dumps, I need to quit. Just the fact that you have a little bit of sense will be enough to get you to quit drinking, and you'll get to that stage where you keep moving along that curve and get to a place of survival, where you're no longer an addict who's down on the road, just sitting by the roadside with a bottle in their hand. Yeah. You're able to function, you're able to provide for your family maybe, and now you're able to go to work. As soon as you hit that spot where you're surviving, you look at yourself and go like, oh, I'm doing really good. And that's the point where more than 95% of people go right back down. Yeah. And you keep fluctuating between failure and survival. And a lot of people think that success is something only really switched on people or people who built different have. That's not true. Because the same activities that take us from failure to survival would also take us from survival to success if we just keep doing them.
Yeah, I love that, bro.
It's just little small things.
Bro, I love that.
Small things. Yeah. Continue to do them, and I've been guilty of that as well. Went to the gym, I was like, for 2 months, I'm going to do 5 days a week without fail. This meant that on the 4th day, if something came up and I've taken 2 rest days, and if I was not able to meet my target, I'm going to hit gym in the morning, and I'm going to do it again in the evening. And I know that tires me, it's not really ideal. 2 months later, when I achieved this and I got it on lock, I'm like, yep, I found myself easing out a bit. Like, I would do 4 days, and I'd be like, no, at least I'm doing 4 out of 5, that's not bad. And that's when that quote hit me. I was like, no, you cannot log out. Like, you need to be in there and keep going. And what I'm doing is not anything crazy. I'm still sticking to basic principles. But if I've, say, hit a body weight, which I'm close to now, hit that body weight, hit that target, hit that bench that I envisioned two years ago, I'm going to keep pushing. Because it's very easy for me to stop and go like, I've achieved what I wanted. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely. And it's I love that so much. Another affirmation on my mirror. Enjoy the boredom of consistency. Yes. That's what it is.
It's boring.
You're gonna get to a point with everything new. Everything new is exciting. In your relationship, a new job, a new business idea. Everything new is exciting. You stick at it long enough, it starts to get dry.
100%.
Relationship starts to get dry. The new business starts to get dry. The ideas don't flow as well. Your career starts to get dry. But you've got to enjoy, like for those who go on to succeed great things, whether that's a beautiful relationship, a healthy marriage, you know, thriving in their career, a successful business, it's those who actually push through those dry seasons and they remain consistent and they remain at it.
That's it.
You know, it's exactly what you talked about. It's that, you know, the first phase, you're doing it again. It's exactly the same action, but just for longer periods of time.
That's it. Same thing over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And at this point, 6 months down the line, someone goes like, oh, you hit the gym. You don't look like you hit the gym. Or like, oh, okay, what do you lift or whatever? I don't care. Because I know just the compounding effect of my consistency and boredom. I know that a year and 2 down the line, which is usually the amount of time it takes people, because I'm on TikTok, man. I'm like in the comment sections of random people that lift going like, okay, you went from here to here. How long did it take you? Okay, what did you do? This and that. And as I'm studying this stuff, I realized that no one did anything in 2 months. It took everyone, even the genetically gifted people who are already like they've got a high muscle percentage, muscle mass in their body. Even them, they're like a year in, 2 years in. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to keep doing this. A year and a half later, I'm going to take a look back and I know for a fact it's going to be different.
Absolutely.
So that's just it. You got to keep, no matter what anyone says, no matter what those instant gratification people are telling you, oh, you started a business, or why don't you have $1 million yet? Or you started a podcast, like why don't you have 1 million listeners yet? That's just not how it works, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
But you got to have the drive to be like, you know what, I'm going to do this day in, day out. I'm going to fix speech, I'm going to fix production, I'm going to fix this and that and everything 1% at a time until X amount of time later. We're in a warehouse recording with bloody lights and like a whole team. And
Absolutely.
Which I definitely see see happening.
Appreciate that. Me too, man. I see it for sure.
Yeah.
And just to touch on that, because I actually learned this a while ago, and it's really something that I believe in 100%, and I stick by.
Yeah.
The concept of nothing good comes easy.
Yeah.
And it's always going to take a bit of time, and just because you don't see the results straight away doesn't mean that you are not building the character to be able to have those results. And that's something really important, where fast growth, the fast success builds ego.
Yes.
Slow growth builds character.
Yes.
And I want to be a guy, I want to be a person where I have a good character and I have good traits. And recently, I was thinking about this actually, I was reflecting on it today, and I thought to myself, maybe why God puts me in sometimes bad scenarios. For example, today I don't want to go into too much detail. It's not a big deal, but I kind of like stepped on someone's Beats headphones and kind of chipped at it.
Ooh.
And it was an accident, completely an accident. Like we're at basketball, and I thought about it in the car, and I'm like, how am I going to deal with this? How am I going to respond to this? I know she says it's fine, but what type of a person do I want to be? And I thought about it, and I said, well, God, why would you put me in that position, number one?
Yeah.
And I realized that he puts me in positions like that to test my character.
Yeah.
And it's not about anybody else. It's about me and my personal life. What kind of a person do I want to be? What are the characteristics I want? What are the traits I want? And I realized, I was reflecting, like all the bad things that he puts me through is to test me and give me an opportunity to refine my character.
Yeah.
And so I went online and I bought her Beats. By the way, bro, I didn't freaking know how much these freaking Beats were until I bought them. They're freaking expensive.
That's mental.
They're freaking expensive, right?
That's mental.
And I'm not telling you the story to like, oh yeah, I bought, like, no.
I don't
like,
even see it like that because...
Bro, it's just relevant because I'm like, well, it's about character building. And every time I go through something like that where it wasn't even my fault, bro, it was an accident. But I see it as an opportunity to reflect and be like, well, what type of a person do you want to be? Do you want to be like the standard? Oh, sorry, I didn't mean it. Sorry, I'm clumsy. Or do you want to freaking be at the top of your game in everything? In how you carry yourself, in how you interact with people, in how you treat people, in how you show people that you know how genuine you are. I've been in so many of those situations where even with like cars where my neighbor's car, this was years ago, I accidentally reversed in it and there was no scratch or anything, but I went and knocked on his door and I said, hey mate, I'm really sorry. I told him. If I didn't tell him, no, he wouldn't have known, bro.
That's really big.
Bro, he wouldn't have known because there's
really
barely
big.
any scratch. But I went and I told him. And he came and checked out. He's like, bro, don't worry about it. There's nothing. And the next day I went and gave him like $200 or whatever. Keep in mind, there was no scratch on the car. I didn't need to do that. He said it was fine. But what type of a person do I want to be? I want a personal responsibility. And then we'll go into reading because it's super powerful. And reading's actually helped me so much on my journey. But personal responsibility is a big thing.
100%,
And
man.
even when it's not my fault, even when it's a genuine accident, I still, to an extent, take personal responsibility, even if I don't need to. I didn't need to give the guy $200. I didn't need to buy freaking Beats for someone.
Yeah.
But to an extent, I'm like, well, even if it's through my clumsiness, I have, caused this to happen.
Some sort of distress to somebody.
Yeah, then I'm going to take personal responsibility. I'm going to right my wrong. And if that's going to cost me a couple of $100, so is it. Money will come back.
Yeah.
But I'm growing my character. That's the type of guy I want to be.
Yeah.
Because when I do settle, when I do have a relationship and I have a family and all that, what type of guy do I want to be for my missus? You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
That's so big for me. What type of a person do I want to be for the future youth that I impact?
Yeah.
And it all comes from little things like that.
It does, man. To another person, like, even to me, I'm like, yeah, $200 is pretty crazy. But I know what it means to you. You set a standard and a bar for yourself.
Yeah.
And it's no longer about Beats or a car or it's $200, whatever. It's about being that person every day and whatever it takes to get. And I fully agree.
Absolutely.
And it's not even like weird to me either. I'm like, when you were saying the story, I'm like, I bet he did that because I see you that way as well. I'm like, Nate would have definitely done that.
It's crazy, yeah.
Yeah, and that's good because another person, not just yourself, like this is confirming what you said. Another person who's sitting next to you and knows you for not, like we don't meet every day, we're on and off, right? We were colleagues back in the day. But I know that you do something like that. So that's really crazy because that's your impact on the world.
Yeah. And
the more people like yourself and more people that do these kind of activities on the daily, you interact with someone. I've had my car hit and someone's just left a note saying, hey, here's my number. I looked at the damage, it was like bare minimum. And I was like, this person's like, my respect for the person's automatically just shot up.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's so easy to just hit and move on, like easily distract yourself and get over it. But yeah, no, I really appreciate that, man. That's top level stuff, to be honest.
Yeah. And I mean, we could definitely touch on more of that. But I mean, let's touch on reading because a lot of people take the piss with reading. And when I'm talking about reading, by the way, I'm not talking about pick up a newspaper and read. I'm not talking about a blog online. I'm talking about really hard-hitting personal development books like The Slight Edge, Atomic Habits, The Compound Effect, The Way of the Superior Man. Like, there are so many really incredible books that I'm trying to slowly work my way through that have genuinely changed my life. And when it comes to limiting beliefs, which I was touching on before the whole interruption thing, what do you think helps limiting beliefs? If I've got limiting beliefs because of my view on life, which is like this, what happens when I read a book or two or three or four or five? My lens goes like this. I start to read and consume greater and bigger ideas than just myself. And so my lens starts to expand. And so it actually strengthens my belief system to combat those limiting beliefs because there will always be something in a book that will combat a limiting belief. Always.
Every time I read these books, sorry,
I go for it.
I'm always like, because I feel like I'm being called out.
And
it's at that point you do two things. One, you put the book down and you be like, oh, it's just too much, it's fiction. Or you sit down, take a hard look at yourself and be like, okay, you read it enough times, you're like, yep, this needs work and I'm ready to put the work in it, right? But that's what it is. Everything in these kind of books challenges you and your habits, your beliefs, the kind of person you want to be, the kind of things you are and aren't doing. And I feel like it's so important to read, man. Like, I'm all about reading and I wasn't for the longest time. Short statistic, and this is something that I was blown away by when I read it for the first time. 58% of the people that graduate high school and don't go on to uni, so just high school graduates, 58%, that's more than half of the world, never pick up a book for the rest of their lives.
That's crazy.
They will not pick up a book to read and to get better. They just won't do it. That's striking. That's like 3.5, 4 billion people just going like, nah.
That's insane.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And I mean, for me, I don't like reading. And I still don't like reading. But I really like how reading elevates my mindset and how it elevates me as a person, how it expands me as a person. But I don't like reading.
Oh, I don't, but
I like the result of reading.
That's it. Reading in itself, like the idea of doing it. Sometimes I don't drive anymore. So I'm on a train with a book. I feel like a douchebag. I'm like, am I trying too hard? Like, are people looking at me and going like, oh, he thinks he's a reader? Because that's how I view people, which is a big thing. And another limiting belief that I've realized through reading is my view of people is really, by and large, a view of myself.
It's a reflection of you.
It really is.
Absolutely.
If I'm judging people on what they're doing, they're like, oh, he's trying hard. He's not trying hard. He's doing what he's doing. He's going about the rest of his day as he should. But I'm here sitting going like, oh, thinks he's cool reading on a train. And that, when I'm reading on a train, it's so hard to beat that. But I'm like, okay, I refuse to be that old person. And I'm going to now sit down and read. But yeah, that's really big. So I also personally don't like reading.
Yeah.
But what it gives me, the perspective of one person, a great person. If you've written a book and it's selling copies, you've done something right.
Absolutely.
Their life story, how they've overcome any sort of limitation or any sort of like difficulty in life, and written a book about it. I read enough of these, I effectively become all these people, man.
Absolutely.
If I remember these and I reread, if I study these books, like not just read once and forget about it, read them enough times and like understand their essence and do enough of these books, I am now, instead of one, I'm 10 people, and these 10 people are all like really successful people.
Yep.
I carry their stories, their shortcomings, their successes all with me. How would you not get better? Like, it just doesn't make sense.
That's really powerful.
Yeah.
And just to add a layer onto that, so I'm a big believer in manifestation. What you dominantly is thinking about, your dominating thoughts, what you visualize will manifest into your life. I'm a big believer in this. Now, what I came to realize about a year ago was, okay, cool, I have dominating thoughts, I visualize, etc. But when I read a book, upon conclusion of that book, because it's given me a new perspective on life, it's actually expanded my mind to a point where when my dominating thoughts expand and my visualization expands, and so therefore I'm actually manifesting greater things.
Yes.
Because I'm reading perspectives that I never touched on before, as you mentioned. You're becoming all these people who have read the book through their work. And there's actually a book I was reading, The Law of Success by Napoleon Hill, and he's probably one of my favorite authors.
Oh, mate, I've got something for you. His most basic book, but I am on my initial days of reading.
Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah,
I knew you were going to bring that up. Yeah, this is a great one. It's some of the stuff is tough to get through, but this is
sorry.
no. This is let's put this right here. This is a great book, Think and Grow Rich. So this was one of my first of his.
Yeah.
But The Law of Success is a massive book, and he talks about this concept of when you're trying to get better, write down 5 to 10 people who you admire in different areas of life. So think about someone who has drive, someone who is very well spoken, someone who's disciplined. Think about these characters and imagine that you're at dinner with them. So picture yourself at dinner with these people. How would you interact with them? Always behave like you're at a dinner table with these, so in my head, I picked a few. So Tristan Tate is someone that, and I'm not talking about his personal, I don't care about his personal stuff. I'm talking about Andrew Tate's brother. I know people don't like the Tates, whatever, get over it. I'm talking about, you can learn something from everyone, by the way. But with Tristan Tate, I realized very quickly that I'm really impressed by how he communicates and how he articulates and how he, presents points and, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, 100%.
He's very well spoken.
Yeah.
And I saw that and I said, he's someone I'd have at my dinner table. I want to be able to replicate that and mimic that to a T. And so that's something that I'm very careful about when I speak and when I review these podcasts. I'm reviewing it through his lens. Like, how would Tristan Tate be speaking? Would he say would there be filler words? Would there be pauses? Does he pause to think before he answers? There are all this stuff that I'm reflecting through his lens. And that's what helps me get better. And it's the same with any, if you're sitting at the table with someone who's like crazy disciplined, like David Goggins, for example. Do you know the Stay Hard guy?
He's coming in November.
Oh, is he?
Yeah. You should get tickets.
I should get tickets to go for sure.
Yeah.
So, if he's someone at your table and your alarm goes off at 5 a.m, how would he respond to that? Live through him. Would he snooze? Or would he, no matter how tired he is, he's getting up? And that's how you, for me anyway, that's something that I've been implementing that has helped me in those areas where I'm reflecting through people who are really excelling in that specific area, if that makes sense.
That does. That's what reading and watching these podcasts and stuff is all about. This podcast in itself, just coming here and sharing these experiences. I feel like us talking about different topics like reading and whatever else we're going to touch up on today. It's going to strike a nerve on someone or the other. Like some of the people in the audience are going to be like, okay, these are real everyday people doing this kind of stuff. Right? But I get what you mean. Reading is important because these are people who've got proven results. And if you replicate even 2% of what they're doing, you're changing your life by so much. Right? And that's all I'm about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And just on that as well, because before I was doing this podcast, before we were doing Tycho, I already had a YouTube and I was doing YouTube videos and probably didn't have much of an audience. I had a lot of subs, but I don't know how many people were actually interacting with the content. And I said to myself one day, even if I'm putting this content out and nobody's watching it, if one person is impacted by what I have to say, then that's enough for me to keep going. One person. I don't care if people don't interact with it, but if one person who's going through something, a low point in their life, if they for some reason come across the podcast and watch this and it changes them just a little bit, then it's enough for me to keep going. I don't care about the 100 who diss me, the 100 who think it's loserish, the 100 who are judging me for it. One person is all it takes for me. One person to impact them to keep going.
Yeah, it's worth so much, man. You can change lives with the words that you speak out, which is why you should be watchful of what you say. But doing what you're doing is so good, which is why literally the first time I saw it, because I think you promoted it on your main page. And I'd just gotten back on Instagram and I saw it and I was like, oh my God, he's doing that? My first thought was like, oh, I should ask. Should I ask? I'll just do it. And I sent it and it was just, it's so good. It's impacted me. Your episode on toxic masculinity, oh boy, that struck a nerve or two. And I looked at it and I was like, okay, wow, these are things I should be doing. And a couple of things came through which I was like, oh wow, these are things that I do that I didn't even know are good. And I'm glad that I do them, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome, man. Let's talk about association. Now, I want to pick your brain on this because I think association is so powerful. The generic saying and quote of "you are the sum of the 5 people you spend most time with" is so true. Now, it's really interesting though because yes, that's true, but people don't understand that you actually do need to get out of your comfort zone to experience, to raise the temperature. Right, of your thermostat. You need to actually get out of your comfort zone and go into a deep end and go into an association where you feel completely out of depth. And that's not comfortable to begin with.
Oh no, it feels like, what am I doing? Do I belong?
I've felt like that so many times. Even right now with the basketball, I feel like that, and I just have to remind myself that. It's just, I'm out of my comfort zone. If I'm going to get better, if I want to get better, I'm going to have to surround myself around people who are better than me by tenfold.
That's the
because
way.
If I just stay around the people that I'm with at the moment, if they're at the same level or dumber than me, I will stay there. You're capped. Do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, no, association's really big. And something really special about association is people say, if I associate with 5 really high-level people, I'm going to raise my standard and get up to that. And we're going to speak about that. But one thing I believe is through association, not only do you get better, but other people get better too. Because if someone's really up there, okay, and say Nate, you've really made it, you've done all the right things, all the personal development that you could in the world, and you've got to a point where you're like, okay, this is perfect. You'll come and see me or somebody else at a stage in their life where you felt like you've already passed over that and you've gone forward. You see them struggling, and while you're giving people advice, while you're speaking to the people, you're learning yourself. Right? You see somebody else who is possibly trying to be in your association to be better. You see their struggle, and you might realize that they're struggling with something you didn't even know you struggle with as well. But now you'll see it, and it will literally make you better. So it doesn't even matter who you're associating with, what level of personal development they are at that moment. But just being in the company of people that want to get better, irrespective of what they've achieved, is just so important. Because all those minds coming together where there's collective belief. And you speak about manifestation. I really believe there's this universal brotherhood that we're all part of, which is why I make sure that I'm always doing the right kind of stuff, right? Every single day. Good acts for no reward in return. I'll do them because I feel like that's the right thing to do, whether it costs me money, time, effort, energy, whatever it may be. I'll do those things because I feel like we're all part of this universal brotherhood. Right. Because of that, I feel like if you're surrounding yourself with people, and these people may not be successful yet, but we've all got the same energy mentally going, we want to be better. And that's the collective thought in the room. There's nothing that can get in the way of these people actually achieving what they want.
Absolutely.
Which is why the inverse also matters. Associating with people who you know are going to bring your energy down, and are going to just take a shit on everything that you've been working towards. These people may be the best of your friends, and respectfully, they need to be cut out. And this doesn't mean you go oh, someone said something negative to me yesterday, I need to cut them out. No, you need to understand. Sometimes, and this is how I evaluate things. I've gone to the gym, I've got a really big pump, right? And I'm feeling like I'm the biggest man in the world, right? I come back home, I'm feeling it. And I speak to a person, I've got this really big energy going about me, and just talking to them and sharing my experiences with them. And 5 minutes later, I feel like everything sort of started to come down. And this keeps happening repeatedly every time I'm sharing my successes or my ideas, my plans for the future. And I feel like it's just always being dampened. That needs to go.
Yeah.
So as important that positive association is for you and everybody around you, understanding that negative association is a thing and how it needs to be cut out, like ASAP, is also a big one. Do you have any experience with that you'd like to share?
The 2 points. The reason I was pointing to Napoleon Hill is because he actually mentions this in his book, The Law of Success, where the power of more than one brain, and actually the Bible talks about this too, when you're gathered in more than, when he was talking about it specifically with prayer, when two or more gather in my name, prayer is a powerful thing. It's the same with this, where two or more people gather and they've got a common vision.
Yes.
And they're all in the same, they're on the same mindset of building each other up. It is the most powerful thing.
Yes.
Nothing can get in the way of that. I think it's really important, and I'm happy that you touched on this. The opposite is actually more important.
Yeah,
it's more significant.
So. Yes.
And I know this saying, I don't know it off by heart, but I'm going to paraphrase, where to overcome, like I'm pretty sure it's a ratio where one positive thought can defeat, what is it? I'm trying to think. Let me try and find it.
I know, for sure.
One positive thought, or you need like 100 positive thoughts to defeat one negative thought.
And
or
that's
something
true,
like that. Yeah.
Because
Let me try. No, you keep going. I'll try to find it.
That, that's literally been my life. And I say my life, it could be everybody else's too, but this is what I feel. I could have done 10 good things today, man. And I'd be like, oh yeah, I've done them. Because I've a higher view of self. I must do the right things. Until I do one stupid thing or one thing incorrectly.
Right. Yes.
And I still do it, but back in the day, I was doing it heavily. And I would sit with that all day long, keep beating myself up over it, because that one negative thought that, like Archie does 10 things right and he does that one thing wrong, literally 10-to-1 ratio. That one is enough for me to feel like I'm not good enough. And it's so important to tell yourself it's okay to make mistakes and understand that things can go wrong and you can make mistakes. And that's something I'm actively working towards. But
me too. I don't know the exact quote, but it's pretty much that ratio. And it's something that I've been, I wouldn't say struggling with, but I've been noticing recently, because I'm genuinely excelling in so many different aspects of my life. But then one part of my life where I might not be excelling at, it's almost like it could bring down the other 9 parts of my life where I'm doing really well. Doing well at the gym, career, money-wise, this, that, whatever. And then one part where I'm not doing as well as I'd like to be doing because I'm just struggling with it a bit. And that can actually bring down my energy in all the other areas. And as long as you're aware of that and you can kind of be like, give yourself grace and just be, aware of, well, you're doing well in all these other areas. Just take your time with the area that you're not doing well in. Just know that it's going to take time for you to get there, because if you've done it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times already before, then you'll get there. But you know the game. You know how it takes time to obviously get consistent and get good at whatever it is you need to get good at. So I guess to tie back into association was what you mentioned about negative association. It's so true. If we have this ratio of 1 to 10, one negative thought can kill whatever it is. What was it again?
100 to 100 positive thoughts, apparently.
I don't know what it is exactly, but you get what I'm saying. Like, you need 10 positive thoughts to kill a negative thought. Let's just go with that, right? 10 positive thoughts to kill one negative thought. Is that it?
Yeah.
Bro, I'm gaslighting myself now. I can't think of it, bro.
No, I've heard this before.
Yeah. I'm trying to find it, but anyway. But if that's the truth, then with negative association, you're actually, it's impacting you at a faster rate.
Yes.
As in, you are 10 times faster than the other way when you're among a positive association. So you're absolutely right. It's good to get around, smart people who are ambitious, people who are going places in life, but you've got to really set boundaries and cut out those who are not going anywhere, because they'll drag you down with them.
Man, and it's like
10 times faster.
It's like an anchor.
100%.
You're going down, and the thing is, not just that, it's like you got to watch the way your time is spent with these kind of people, right? Because to me, learning these, like reading these books are not easy to read. By the way, you'd probably know this because you've read this. This is not an easy read. Like when I'm reading this book, a lot of stuff that's in there, I'm just like, I can't miss anything that I'm reading. I cannot get passive even for a second, because everything is so important. Written in the 1930s, like back then, those principles still apply today. That's crazy.
It's crazy.
But I'm spending all that time, I'm literally writing stuff down, putting them in my phone, going like, Think and Grow Rich, notes from Think and Grow Rich, what I thought was important. Like for every book, I do that, right? I'm doing all that stuff. I'm going to the gym. I'm looking at myself. I'm pushing those weights, training everything till failure, right? Until it hurts. Like next morning, I'm in pain. All these things are my 10 positive things.
Yeah.
For then me to go around somebody who doesn't believe in any of this stuff and tells me, oh yeah, you're not looking that big, or you read all these books but you don't sound like you're really wise because you've said something stupid or you've not made sense in an argument. That brings you crashing down. And that's when I realized that I spend too much of my time and energy and effort every single day in becoming better. I'm never going to disrespect myself by allowing people in my life that are going to bring me down when I know just what it takes. Because, like, you know, waking up 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning, which I'm doing, and the winter's coming, I'm like, I'm not even sure I'll be able to do it. But that's another challenge. But yeah, doing that every morning, man. Even when you've slept late, even when you know your body is still going through recovery, but sticking through that, pushing yourself through those cycles, it's just disrespectful if you let somebody rain on your parade.
Absolutely.
Right? And I previously said that this journey of self-development is a lonely road. It's not just lonely because people don't understand you. It's lonely because you will actively, like in the movies, you're going to actively have to cut out people. And it's going to be like that dramatic scene where you're going to like let go of their hand down the cliff and never see them again.
Yeah.
Because if you don't do that, they will drag you with them.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I'm sorry I keep going to my mirror of affirmations, but it's almost like everything we've talked about links, because another one of them is let go of what doesn't serve you.
Yes, and not just people.
Everything. Yeah. Negative thoughts.
Yeah.
I've become very, very good at letting things go to the point where it's kind of dangerous, because when you're interacting with people, a lot of people don't want you to let things go.
Yeah.
A lot of people, believe it or not, don't want you to be easygoing.
No, they don't. They hate it.
They hate it.
Yeah.
So when when someone doesn't treat you well and you let it go, it almost pisses them off.
Yeah.
So I've got very good at letting things go, whether that's relationships, friends, negative thoughts, things that are not in my control that go south. There are things that happen every day that don't go well, whether that's on the road or whatever. And so if it doesn't serve me, I'm letting it go. And as you mentioned, I really want to reiterate what you said, because it's so powerful. If I'm putting all this energy and all this work into bettering myself and refining myself and trying to be the best version of myself, then I've got to be super conscious and super intentional about the negative thoughts and the things that don't serve me, that might, do you get what I'm saying?
Bring you down.
Bring me down.
All the work that you've put
in.
Yeah.
So that's really powerful. And I think
you got to protect yourself, man. Like it's literally guarding yourself from all that's out there, because then you fall into that trap of being like everybody else who's not doing anything about their lives, right? Because it's so easy to shit on yourself.
Yeah.
But when you're working, you just can't. You just can't let thoughts, people, anything that doesn't serve you penetrate that bubble that you've put yourself in.
Yeah. And I think, for myself, I used to be a massive people pleaser. I still am to an extent, but setting those boundaries is really important. It's what I'm slowly learning about. Like, saying no is actually very healthy.
Yeah, I've got it written here. I was like going to say it as well.
It's very healthy to say no and to set boundaries and to say, I'm not going to this party, not going out tonight because I have things that I've got to do. I'm looking after myself. I'm not going to spend more than 3 hours with this group because this group are not going anywhere, and I'm not gaining anything by being around them. Setting those boundaries is essential. And I guess, I do want to touch on our last topic, which is relationship struggles, and obviously touch on your experience, but this ties into setting boundaries as well. Because I know a lot of people go into a relationship and they go into one, and then all of a sudden their priorities just goes out the window. Their standards go out the window. And they take themselves off the pedestal, right? And so I think it's really important that when you do enter a relationship, that you're keeping your standards high. And you're not compromising for yourself, and you're not compromising. You can sacrifice without compromise. Sounds very contradictory. Like, it sounds like I'm contradicting myself when I say that, but you can sacrifice things without completely taking away from your values. As in a relationship, because in relationships, like, you have to sacrifice. You have to be able to compromise with your partner, but you can do that in a way that it's not going to chip away at your values, because I think your values are really important, and what you stand for has to be set in stone.
It has to be priority.
It has to be priority.
Yeah, that's so well said. No, absolutely. You cannot chip away at your values. just to please somebody.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to fall into the trap of pleasing the person that you're going to bed with, because you're doing that pillow talk stuff.
Yeah.
You're spending almost all your time with the person you're in a relationship. That's at least for me when I'm in relationships. My partner takes all my time, and it's not even something I'm complaining about. Like, I want them to. I choose to give them that time. Yeah. But in saying that, if in spending that time with them, I lose a sense of self and my values and things I've got to do start taking the back seat, that's as beautiful as a relationship may be. That's not a healthy relationship. Yeah. Like, they may make you feel butterflies and stuff that you haven't felt since high school. And you're like, oh, this is perfect. They look a certain way. They teach you a bunch of things. Those things could be positive as well. But if in keeping their association, you have to spend yourself, it's not worth the price. Yeah. It just never is. And that's very easy I feel like men fall into that trap because like, not that this is the way all stories go, but most of the time men are the chasers. So when you're trying to woo somebody and like trying to chase them, you're trying to please them and get them, on your side. And when you're doing that, once you've scored, a lot of men keep doing that, keep spending more and more and more of themselves, and that's just never worth it. Yeah, so you gotta, for anybody who's in a relationship and they feel like and even if they don't feel like, I don't know if this is gonna cause a problem or whatever, take a good look at how much of yourself you're spending in that relationship. And if you feel like you are, it doesn't mean it's the end of the relationship. It's a conversation to be had, because that gets in the way of personal development.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you'd want to develop yourself, but you're not now able to find time. You're not able to commit to things that you need to do to get better, because your relationship takes up that much of your space and energy.
Absolutely.
So you need to like sit down, hit the books, and be like, all right, here's what is, and need to fix it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think another thing as well, which I'm starting to learn, is when you're in a relationship and you fold on your values for her, I think subconsciously she starts to lose trust for you.
Yes.
Because she goes, well, is that all it's going to take for him to fold on his values? Then what's he going to do when we have a family, we have kids, and he's going to provide? Like, when it gets really tough, what's he going to do? If he can't, if he's sacrificing gym just to spend time with me, it's something that's really important to him, his physical health. Yeah. And we get into a relationship and he gains 15, 20 kilos. Yeah. I think subconsciously they begin to...
She's out.
Yeah. Well, it's not that she's out, but she begins to realize that, well, if he can't even maintain his physical health for me, then how's he going to provide for us? Like when we have kids and the family expands. And so it's funny because it's almost like a double-edged sword, because you obviously want to prioritize your relationship, but you've got to hold your standard and you've got to keep your value system intact, because otherwise she will begin to resent you, she will begin to point fingers at you, and it begins to kind of subconsciously, she loses attraction, it crumbles down. Yeah. Whereas if you can kind of set boundaries at the beginning and compromise, as in there's a time, you're spending time together, you're putting her, not when I say putting her first, like you're really taking care of her, because you can take care of her without completely, sacrificing your values. You're communicating, you've got certain agreements in place, etc. You can do all that while also holding what's important to you. Yeah. First and foremost. You can do that without sacrificing and taking away from gym. Yeah. Without sacrificing and taking away from personal development. Yeah. From your career, from all this sort of stuff. So it's trying to find that balance, because I know for a fact that will actually allow her to trust you more. Yeah. When she can see that, hey, I'm poking him and I'm really pushing and he's not budging.
Because he's got set values.
She feels a lot safer with you, because she knows, well, if I'm the most important thing in his life right now and he's not budging for me, then I know that he's solid.
Yeah. That's so well said.
Yeah.
Because it's something they won't, like every woman or partner, your man, female, whatever it is, they want time. I personally, like my partner requires time. Yeah. I require time from my partner. That's just how things work. But to have those values, like sometimes the person I'm seeing, they're very motivated into what they're doing. They're setting up businesses as they're very young and setting up businesses. So they're always working. They're not that 9 to 5. They're like 12 to 12 type grind, right? So any second that I'm away at the gym and stuff, I know they're on their laptop just like going at it. And sometimes when I'm back, they can't easily disconnect. And I've just come back from the gym. I've done work. I've done the gym. I've done my meal preps and all that. It's chill time for me. But they're still going at it. Because I say these things and I preach these things so heavily, I sit down and I chill out when they're working. I'm like, you know what? It takes them as long as it takes them. Just like myself, they're also working on themselves. And it has to be a safe space because I can set my boundaries and values and my partner can agree to them. But you keep doing that again and again, the time at the gym is an hour and a half and they're like sitting home waiting for you and stuff, it becomes a problem. So you need to make sure not just are you setting boundaries, but you're getting in relationships with people who you know are able to understand these things.
Yeah.
Right? Now that's I feel like that determines the quality of the person. They could bring X amount of things to the table, but if they don't understand that you got to do what you got to do, and you find yourself fighting yourself and then fighting them every time you're making space for your personal development, it's coming from a place of, it's not coming from a clean place. And that needs to be, that needs to be said. Like I could be really set in my values, but my partner is so hell-bent on making that an impossibility that maybe one day I might falter and I'll just be like, okay, it's fine. You know what, today I won't go.
Yeah.
That sort of stuff. But in saying that, which you said, compromise and sacrifice, even though they're two opposite words. Sorry, was that what you said? I don't know what you said.
No, as in I was contradicting myself because I'm saying that, I can't remember what I said, to be honest, which means it probably wasn't that significant. But
it made sense.
Yeah, I feel like I was making sense, but it's like you can compromise. I can't remember what I said, bro.
It was basically you can sacrifice. Every relationship requires sacrifice.
Yep.
What the essence I got, the meaning that I got from it was you can sacrifice stuff for your partner while setting boundaries.
Yes.
Like
without, that's pretty much what I was trying to say.
In doing that, it's also a thing that now I've got a mate he's really the person who put me on this path, because I remember on my birthday he gave me the book Miracle Morning. I don't know if you've read it. I put Callum on it. It's a really good book, but ever since I read that book, I couldn't go back. Like that's when this whole thing started. So shout out to him. But he's got 2 kids and a wife, and his schedule's busy, and he's trying to do the gym and stuff. And I go to him. I see him every now and again because him and I work on a lot of things together. Like we've got projects and future plans together where we're always, interacting in a business capacity. But while we're doing that, I see him and his commitment to the gym. But now when you've got kids, like we're talking about partners because we're maybe interacting with an audience that's the same age as us. But a lot of people have kids and that sort of stuff. And they might ask the question, how do I find time for personal development? Like where's my time? Because my kids take up all my time. So what I learned from this guy is like home gym. So he's always going to the gym. He's the one who dragged me to the gym initially. Yeah. He knows he's got kids now and he can't really make that time because his wife would always, not from a bad place, would be like, hey man, you've spent an hour and a half, you're still at the gym. So I saw him do 1.5 hour sessions and then cut back down to 45 minutes.
Yep.
Now, one could argue that that's not okay. He needs to put his foot down and tell his wife that he needs to do what he needs to do. But that's where that sacrifice comes in. So I feel like he's still doing his personal development, but he's tweaking it a little bit to make sure family is also taking priority. So I feel like if you're doing that, you're not doing the wrong thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Like for me, when I'm like trying to go to gym, and I know someone at home, I keep going back to this because something that I'm actively working with and struggling with. And I know that someone's come over home, they're waiting for me. I want to take 5-minute rests between every set that I go to failure till, right? Because I need to. Because I'm not going to. But now I try to find ways to structure my stuff, maybe do supersets that I wasn't really inclined on doing before, and spend maybe 15-20 minutes less. I feel like every relationship requires that. Like if you're so set in your ways, you're like, I'm just going to do this, that can have the reverse effect where she or he may say, hey, you're never really making time for me. And like, I value what you're doing, but you need to chill out. So it's good to find that balance.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up because I completely agree. And that's where emotional intelligence comes in. You've got to be able to understand where your partner is at. And that's what I was trying to say with that saying where it's like you can sacrifice without taking away from your values. Because every relationship is going to require sacrifice to an extent. As soon as you involve more than one person, you have to sacrifice something. And that's healthy. That can be healthy. But I think that's what ties into, the journey of personal development, because it's those who are on that journey who will find ways to make it work, not at the expense of their values and not at the expense of their partner's not values, their partner's requirements or needs, right? She might have specific needs, like maybe and this is where love languages is really important. Everyone should know what their partner's love language is. Is it quality time? Is it physical touch? Is it words of affirmation? That's really important that you understand what it is.
Makes a hell of a difference.
It makes a massive difference when you understand, does my partner need quality time? does she need words of affirmation where I'm just more intentional about how I am communicating to her and noticing?
Yeah.
Is it acts of service? What is it? And that makes a massive difference as well.
And now that we're talking about relationship struggles or just relationships in general, and the main overarching topic being personal development, here's something I've realized, and this might go off topic a little bit,
all right,
but like we'll bring it back, try to tie them together.
Yep.
So say someone's listening to this podcast and they're like, oh, personal development. I've heard a couple of guys, at work talk about it. What is it? They start reading books and that sort of stuff. This person's main goal through personal development might be to be rich, or like that's their final goal, that, okay, I want to be financially from A to B, and I'm going to develop myself in a certain way where I get there. I have realized over time that all these things that we do to develop ourselves in this way tie in together. Whereas what I mean to say is, if my goal is to become richer, but in doing that, I'm reading all these books that tell you how to set yourself up financially, what financial freedom is, how you need to change your habits and that sort of stuff. While I'm doing that, but I'm also committed to the gym, to developing a long-lasting relationship with my partner, to committing to that universal brotherhood where I'm doing the right kind of things and developing myself in different areas. I want people to know that while you're putting that money aside to become financially free and you've got plans, but they're not instantly or immediately moving forward, I want to confirm that everything that you're doing in other areas of your life in terms of personal development is adding up and adding value to this side as well, to the financial side, and you can't really see it.
Yeah.
Right? Because all these areas tie into each other. Yeah. My commitment to the gym, waking up in the morning, or my commitment to setting up my financial plans and sitting down and finding that time out of my main day job and spending my evening going like, okay, here's what I need to do, spending that. Those things, that's why it's called personal development. Those things develop you as a person. They change your values. You sitting down going like, I know it's $200, but I'm going to do this because I'm going to buy those Beats headphones for that girl that I might have upset based on what I've done. You doing those things, you taking all these actions will eventually lead to whatever success you're looking for in whichever area of your life, because you're becoming that person that is chasing, I wouldn't call it perfection, but like the best of what you can do.
Absolutely, yeah.
Chasing your personal best.
Absolutely.
Chasing integrity. And what we said about, one thing I forgot to touch upon was being true to yourself when nobody else is watching.
Yeah.
Right? Those
commitments. I'm so big on that.
I'm
so big on that.
I can come to Nate and be like, hey, I did this, I did that, and that on the podcast. Yeah, I'm doing all these crazy things. But when I'm off camera, when nobody at home's watching, when my partner's not there, when my mum and dad are not on call asking me, what have I done? Am I being true to myself?
Yeah.
Right? All those things that you do, being true to yourself, being 100%, I call it 100% commitment. Commitment to the extent where you're committing to yourself and being true when no one's watching, right?
Yep.
When you're doing all those things at any area of your life, at your job, at your current job, which you may not take to be your final job, right? If you're showing 100% commitment there, the same at the gym and in your relationship, you'll find that eventually that financial success that you're chasing, which may not entirely link with the relationship or the gym or your current job, will find you.
Absolutely.
Because you're becoming that person who has that vision, but now you're becoming better and better.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the whole personal development journey is about. You touch upon different areas and you find out who you become as a result of your success in those areas gets you what you're really looking for.
Yeah. There's so much gold in that, it's not even funny. And that's, you've touched on so many things that I want to...
I tried to tie it together. I was
no, that was perfect, bro. That was so powerful.
Yeah.
And integrity is a big thing. Who are you when nobody's watching is a big thing. And I want to touch on that a bit. You mentioned something else that was literally tip of the tongue right now. What did you mention? Maybe it will come back to me, but we'll touch on this concept of, well, who are you when nobody's watching?
Yeah.
And it links into integrity. Are you a man of integrity? And I go by, obviously I'm religious, so I always bring up God, I always bring up, things like that. It's okay if people are not.
Yeah. No, very powerful. But through this, I found religion, because my family is religious, and they have been, and I've sorry, just distracting you again, but I realized how much more believing in the Lord has impacted me in my way of doing things, because belief in call it whatever religion you've got, whatever it is, a belief in that higher power is belief in me. I've found that it links back.
Absolutely.
And every single day, you heard it topic about gratitude as well, which you touched upon. So I didn't speak much on it this time, but just being thankful anytime any little good thing happens to me. Like you texted me going like, on Sunday I couldn't do the podcast because I was flying. I'm going to Brizzy for work. And before I even responded, you messaged me saying, "Oh, let's do Thursday." And I know I've got Thursday off. I looked up and I was like,
"Let's go, bro.
I really want to be there." And I know these are small things, and people might call you stupid, be like, "Yeah, bro, it's just, he could have."
No, it's big. Those small things are big to me.
I don't see it that way. I see it. Everything that's happening for me is a plan of a higher power that's looking out for me.
Yeah.
Like as I said, being 17 years old, coming into the country, man, I didn't know anything. I didn't know the culture. I didn't know anything. I was just here and I was just doing things that people have said are good to do, and I was just doing them. And the person that I spoke to you about, the guy who's got his wife and kids who I associate with now, he was somebody I found on Facebook Marketplace whose house I was living at, like in a share house. That's how I found him. And look at us now, like we've grown together, we've come here, we're working on things together. Similarly, I could have ended up at anybody's house. Yeah. They could have been an alcoholic and I could have slowly become one. Like I have associated with people who've been drinking a lot, and that's all the company I had at the time, like during COVID, because we were like, I used to work at a store and we'd only interact with the people of that store because we couldn't travel here and there. And I realized within a span of 2-3 months, I started drinking more and just doing these things that I normally didn't do.
Yep.
But anyway, I digress. What I was saying was, I forgot what I was saying.
That's right. Yeah, well, bro, we have those moments.
So
many, I know, there's just so many things that we're talking about. But I guess we're talking about
the high power.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So in saying that, so many things could have gone wrong. I could have ended up at the wrong house. I could have ended up in places where people didn't have the best interests for me at heart. But I've just realized, from a higher view, everyone that I've met from then till now has effectively helped me and been good to me, which has kept reinforcing my belief of being good to others.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people have people that scam them and do wrong things to them. And I'm sorry for anybody to whom that happens. But you got to understand that barring those people, being good and believing in that higher power that's up there and constantly all the little good things that happen to you, thanking the Lord above, will set you into a state of mind where you lose that ability to feel like, oh God, why me? Because you're now, every single thing that happens, like me pulling that book out, I'm like, oh my God, he talked about Napoleon Rich. I'm mentally going like, oh, thank God that I get the opportunity to pull that book out and educate people on it.
Yeah.
Every little thing that you look up to the Lord and be thankful for adds to that little well of gratitude.
Absolutely.
Which means that when something bad happens to you, which happens to everybody, like you could be anybody and anything will happen to you, the impact of it will be a lot lesser because your focus is on, okay, it's happened to me. How do I move on?
Yeah.
How do I get better?
Yeah.
Sorry, I know I took it.
No, you're
I'm
good.
big on religion.
No, you're good, man. You're good. I think, like, back to what I was saying in terms of integrity, I always try and do things like, I've done a lot of things where if people saw, I'd be praised so much.
Yeah.
And I have to almost let go of that want to be praised and just do it because God is watching.
Yes. All the time.
God is watching. Like how when you say, what type of person are you when nobody's watching? You're right, nobody's watching, but God is watching you. So what type of person you are? How are you in public? How are you when you go to eat and nobody's around you? Do you leave your rubbish? Do you clean up after yourself?
Yeah.
How are you treating the homeless guy on the street? There are so many things that I kind of live by. Because here's the thing, right? You touched on how you do one thing is how you do everything. You kind of touched on that, and I've mentioned it before. But when I talk about excellence and how I want to be excellent and excel at everything, I mean literally everything. Yes. I'm not talking about one or two broad categories. I'm talking about to the T. How do I get up in the morning? How do I interact with strangers? How do I... Like everything, bro. How do I interact with homeless people? With buskers, everything. And that's a big thing for me because a lot of the time, people aren't going to see how you interact with those types of people. And for me, what I live by is, well, God is watching. So be excellent in every second of the day. And look, I'm not perfect, but I'm far from perfect. But it's all that intentional decision. And where I do F up... where I, might have a bit of road rage or whatever it is where I stuff up, it's a matter of me, as we mentioned at the beginning, reflect, refine, be better.
Correct, yeah. That's it.
Like, I shouldn't have responded like that. Reflect, refine, be better. And it's all being intentional about that.
And so, it's easy to say these things, man. Like, I'm aware that there's people watching us. A lot of people can relate. But a lot of people come from a place of not being able to relate. So how does this stuff tie in for them? But for instance, somebody who's not religious and doesn't believe in God, which is completely fine. Like, you do you, man. You've got your own beliefs, man. They may go like, who's watching? You got to understand that even if they don't believe in a God that may be watching, you still have to be 100% honest to yourself.
Yeah.
Because who you are when the curtain falls is really a reflection of who you will continue to be forever. A lot of times, you put up a good face, you go to work, and then you get treated a certain way at work. You come back home, and you've got these thoughts. Now, no one's watching, and you're like, oh, I should have just, given it to him. That sort of stuff. Back in the day, I would let these emotions fill me up with this sense of false, sense of, that I've done the right thing, or I'll get them back, or, confidence, false sense of confidence. Now, anytime I have a bad thought, and this is not even my actions or getting up at a certain time or eating a certain type of food, it's like my thoughts when I'm alone by myself, and if I find them going into a direction I don't want them to go, where I'm thinking about somebody who's done me wrong back in the day, and they fully deserve, if not to be hurt, but like to be thought of in a negative way, because they've impacted me in a really negative way in my life. I stop myself, I stop right there and go like, cancel, cancel, cancel. I say that out loud to stop my thoughts going in that direction, because what I feel like a lot of people fall trapped to is these negative thoughts. We said that they're 10 times more impactful than positive ones. So you got to sit down and realize that even the thoughts that you get when no one's watching and you don't believe in a God or a higher power, you need to be the one that watches.
Yeah.
You need to know that I'm watching, and have a third person view of yourself, and that third person would be the person you want to become.
Yeah.
They're in the future, but the fact that you're not them right now, you can use them as the guide that watches you when you're having these negative thoughts, when you're about to hit that snooze button. You're watching when no one's watching. So I feel that's something they should also be able to, have if they're not big believers, because I feel like a lot of people aren't, especially today. So
yeah, absolutely. For sure, man. I don't know. I think that was probably a good place to end it. I want to end with this, just especially because the dogs are starting to get rowdy. I don't know if you can you can hear them. They start like, we were good for a good 45 minutes, and then look at her. She's just staring you down, bro. She's like, she's so cute. I love it. I want to end with this, because this is kind of going to go back to personal development and something you mentioned at the beginning, where you said, thank you for giving me an opportunity to come and give my perspective on things and talk. And something that I really love about this is the fact that I can sit down and listen. And a lot of people out there actually are not good at listening. And there is so much power in listening. When you sit there and I can add my perspective, I can add value here and there, but for a majority of the time I'm listening to you, I'm expanding as a person. I'm learning so much. And in a way, I'm humbling myself as well. Like, it's not all about me, you know what I mean? And it shouldn't be. But I genuinely think there's so much power in just sitting there and listening to someone share their story, share their perspective. Like, I've learned so much from just this one episode.
Likewise, man. Like, you've said some crazy things, blowing my mind,
So I just, I think, and I strongly encourage everybody to, just in your everyday life, like, take the time to listen, refine that skill of listening, because a lot of people are not good at it. You can communicate and you can talk and you can say one thing, but have you truly listened to what that person has said? Because I think if people did a lot more of that, there'd be a lot more harmony, there'd be a lot more expansion in terms of people's personal development as well. And I genuinely enjoy it. I love the opportunity to listen to people and to reflect and watch it back and then learn. Like, I love learning, bro. I love it.
Yeah, that's the only way you get better.
100%.
You gotta have love for learning. Yeah.
But look, we'd probably go on for a bit longer, but we'll leave it there. We'll definitely have you back on for sure.
Yeah,
because I think let's go. But I think that was fun, man. It was a good episode.
I enjoyed it. Yeah, it's also with these sort of things, it's very hard to keep your thoughts organized.
Yeah, I know.
Because like I don't get to talk about these things to people, man. Like, because no one's got time of day.
Yeah.
You're a great listener, but like, even in listening, even great listeners will be like, all right, man, like, I get it. You're waking up early. Like, you're doing good things, good for you. Get on with the rest of your life. To be able to come out and say these things, I realize that these things need to be structured. So as you said, that you self-correct and like, look at what needs to be fixed. And I'm going to probably go back and be like, all right, I understand I've got a lot to say. But say next time I come on, or I have something where I'm speaking to an audience in a different capacity, I need to structure my thoughts better.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to fall trap. Be like, oh, I know this and this might help you, that might help you, that might help you. But just closing remarks, I thought I'd bring it up. We talked about association. A thing that I've recently started working on is, and it's something I haven't shared with anybody, but I thought it'd be a good place to, like, I don't know how many people are going to listen to it, but a good idea to see if it even works, that is. I'm trying to come up with an app for this kind of stuff, which integrates everything that we've talked about. So if it sees light of day, it would be book summaries, journaling, which we didn't touch up on today, but was very impactful, with prompts, without prompts, curated content for people, and asking them, where are you in life? Like, are you a student? Are you a single mother? Like, random. Like, are you, an entrepreneur? Are you 9-to-5 worker? What are you? What are your goals? What areas of your life do you want to improve? Because we touched on relationships, we touched on, association. What do you want to get better at? Like communicating, that sort of stuff. And giving these prompts and like sort of curating the content for them within the app. And eventually, if this moves forward, then adding a functional, call it a second sister app of association, where we build a community where people, how you swipe left and right on Tinder?
Yeah.
But the people on it are initial users of the first app who are on this platform, and they're meeting people who are of a similar mind, because I feel like association, which we spoke about, is so important.
Yeah.
And something that can kill personal development is not having someone to share it with, or not being able to learn from other people's perspective who are on the same journey as you.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's why I've come here, because I'm honestly very shy. I don't know if you remember, like I'm not really somebody who'll come on TV and be like, oh, hey, here's me.
Yeah.
But I've started to do that because I'm like, if I want to push this out, I need to.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a good idea. I love that. When it's in the works, definitely come back on. We talk about it. You can even show us like a live example of it. That's pretty sick.
Yeah, because my objective is like, it's an app that's going to generate, that's the last thing in my mind. For me, it's like, okay, how can we reach more people?
Yeah.
Like 1 million people from something small. How can we touch so many lives and let people know it's okay to falter it's okay to fall down. It's okay to lose track of your personal development, because life comes in the way.
Yeah.
Right? If you face a big loss where you've been on a really good journey, which has happened to me, you're like, every day I'm kicking goals, getting better, and something happens and you get thrown off. How do you build back up from there? How do you take support from others who've possibly been in a similar situation? Someone might not have seen loss, and they're like, oh, it's okay, man, just pick up. But someone might have, and they'll tell you just how to. So I feel like to be able to have that community and that interaction and that constant, push notifications, that sort of stuff. Yeah.
That'd be pretty cool. As soon as it's ready, man, like definitely come over.
Yeah.
I want to see it. We'll have a chat about it.
Yeah.
We'll show it on the podcast as well, because that's really cool. I think. Yeah. I wish you all the success with that.
Thank you.
It sounds epic. And as you mentioned as well, I've touched on this so many times because it's from one of my favorite books, but success is not about the money. The money is always a bonus, and it will come. It's about how many people you impact. It's about the impact you have.
Yeah.
Because that's everlasting. Money is just a currency that's no longer backed by gold anyway. It's just, the Federal Reserve just printing it by the trillions. It's losing its value every day. I mean, look, money will come. I love money, by the way. I'm not against money at all. I love it, and I want to be wealthy.
Same.
But as you mentioned, the impact, if you have money at the forefront of your mind, you will never reach people. You will never impact people. But if you have impact at the forefront of your mind, it will impact millions, and the money will be a bonus.
It's a byproduct.
Absolutely.
I agree.
But no, that was good, man. I'm keen to have you back on. And,
for sure.
Good stuff.
Thanks,
we'll wrap it there.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
All good, man.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, listening.
Watching, listening. Yeah, you know what I realized actually? I actually never tell people to subscribe.
Yeah.
So guys, subscribe to the channel.
That's good stuff.
I never tell people at all.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah.